There is an interesting case reported there last week in the media about residential tenancies and residential lettings, and this question of sharing or hiring or renting a room rather. So you might have a situation where you have a landlord, a tenant, and then that tenant in turn perhaps hires a room or rents a room to a friend or to somebody else. The RTB has found that people who rent rooms in shared rented homes from another tenant rather than from the landlord may not have the same protections as tenants directly renting from landlords. In a recent case there involving the Residential Tenancies Board, it found that a woman who was a tenant in a shared apartment in Dublin 8 had no contractual relationship with the corporate landlord. The woman made contact with the head tenant through social media network, and it led to her living in the apartment. The head tenant was the contact point for the landlord, and the landlord collected the rent every month. The landlord charged for the 2-bed apartment. The woman who was paying the rent to the head tenant complained that she'd been thrown out by him in January 2024 and brought a case against the landlord alleging unlawful eviction. The landlord told the tribunal that it had not known that the head tenant was letting rooms in the apartment. The tribunal decided that there was no tenancy agreement between the woman and the landlord, and therefore the case did not fall within its jurisdiction. The bottom line is that people who rent rooms or beds in shared accommodation and deal with another tenant in the property rather than the landlord may be classified as licensees rather than tenants of the property, and if that's the case, then they're not covered by the Residential Tenancies Act and not covered by the Residential Tenancies Board when it comes to disputes. People who are in a licensee arrangement can, after 6 months, seek to have the landlord recognise them as a tenant. In cases where a person rents a property from the owner and this person who does not live in the property then lets it out to others, the person doing so becomes a sub-landlord for the tenancy and takes on the responsibilities and duties of a landlord under the Act. However, a leading barrister has said that under the Residential Tenancies Act, a dwelling that qualifies as a tenancy under the Act must be a self-contained unit. Self-contained unit. So a sublet unit needs to have its own kitchen and bathroom. If not, it is not a unit that can be registered as a tenancy under the Act. That's critical, because if you are renting a bedroom, you do not have it's not a self-contained unit. It doesn't have its own kitchen and doesn't have its own bathroom. So you need to be careful. You need to be careful if you're a landlord, and you need to be careful if you're a tenant, and you need to be careful if you're a person who is entering into some arrangement to hire or rent a room. Hope you find this video useful. If you do, I'd appreciate if you hit the old thumbs up button down below. Thank you very much.